All right, this is apparently Irish Week at the Forest. We did Irish dancers, and then we're going to have a St. Patrick's Day, and today we're doing Irish poetry. And so to start off with Irish poetry, I want to do something a little different than I usually do when I'm just reading poems, because Irish poetry and Irish music are like you can't untangle them. And this particular piece that we're going to start with is sung by a very famous Irish band called, well, the Chieftains play the music and use traditional Irish instruments. Sinead O'Connor is a well-known Irish singer. And the song is from a very old poem that was written in the 18th century. And it was about the same thing that they're singing about now, is Ireland trying to get free of English domination. All they do is every time they rewrite the poem, they just keep changing the names of the battles because they've had this ongoing battle for 400 years now. So let's start with this one, and then we'll read some more just Irish, contemporary and modern Irish poetry. So this is to get you in the mood.
Flower with grief was sore, for I parted then with valiant men, whom I never shall see more. But to and fro in my dreams I go, and I kneel and pray for you, for slavery fled, glorious dead, when you fell in the foggy dew.
Now, that song will become an earworm for hours for you. But, you know, this is, of course, about the Easter Rising in 1916. And some of the Irish, of course, decided World War I was the perfect time to strike for rebellion and freedom, and some decided they would go and fight with the English. And that's what she says, it's better to die neath an Irish sky than at Sulva or Soudel Bar. Those were sites in the Dardanelles where some Irish troops were killed. Okay, so Ireland has been at war for how many hundreds of years? They still are, essentially. They're still, even though they're Northern Ireland and Ireland, they're still not a terribly peaceful country. So a lot of their poems are about suffering and tragedy. In fact, most of them are. When I was trying to find some contemporary poems that would be interesting, a lot of them are, they're sad. They're just sad but they're beautiful. Okay, this is a poem called The Lost Land by a woman Irish poet named Evan Boland. I have 2 daughters. They are all I ever wanted from the earth, or almost all. I also wanted one piece of ground, one city trapped by hills, one urban river, an island in its element, so I could say mine, my own, and mean it. Now they are grown up and far away, and memory itself has become an immigrant, wandering in a place where love dissembles itself as landscape, where the hills are the colors of my child's eyes, where my children are distances, horizons. At night, on the edge of sleep, I can see the shore of Dublin Bay, its rocky sweep and its granite pier. Is this, I say, how they must have seen it, backing out on the boat at twilight, shadows falling on everything they had to leave and would love forever. And then I imagine myself at the landward rail of that boat, searching for the last sight of a hand. I see myself on the underworld side of that water, the darkness coming in fast, saying all the names I know for a lost land: Ireland, absence, daughter. I said they're beautiful poems, but they are a lot of poems about loss. And even when they're admiring the beauty, they're thinking of the loss of it, like she talks about the glorious dead in that song. This is a poem called The Wayfarer by a contemporary poet called Patrick Pearse. The beauty of the world has made me sad, this beauty that will pass. Sometimes my heart has shaken with great joy to see a leaping squirrel on a tree, or a red ladybird upon a stalk, or little rabbits in a field that evening lit by a slanty sun, or some green hill where the shadows drifted by, some quiet hill where mountainy man has sown and soon will reap near to the gates of heaven, or little children with bare feet upon the sands of some ebbed sea, or playing in the streets of little towns in Connacht, things young and happy. And then my heart has told me, these will pass and change, will die and be no more. things bright and green, things young and happy, and I have gone upon my way sorrowful. I did not look for sad poems. In fact, one of the things that I came across that was really interesting is there are a lot of Irish poems, a lot of them have a note of the fantastic, whether we're talking about leprechauns and little people, or whether they're, St. Patrick's driving the snakes out of Ireland, which never happened, but it's a good story. Or Irish mythology is still very present in Irish memory. And so the love-hate relationship with the Catholic Church that the Irish have is a source of some of their poetry, and it's really fascinating. This one is a little bit longer, but it's such a great poem and such fun to hear it that I thought I'd read it to you. It's called Mass. Mass is as in Catholic Mass, by a woman named Elaine Feeney. Mass will be said for no more bad language and gambling and wonking that the Athenry boys are doing down the back of the castle, down the back of the couch, all the punching and hitting and groaning, moaning at the Turlough boys, the Clarenbridge boys, the boys from Kilmore Daly down the back of the presentation grounds. There will be Mass when you lose at the Galway races, and for the saving of your soul if you take the boat to Cheltenham. There will be a Mass for when the horse runs and when the horse dies, and for the bookies who win and the punters who lose, and the bookies who lose and the punters who win. There will be Mass for hair coursing and flask filling. There will be Mass for your intercert and your 21st. There will be a filling out your CAO form Mass. Mass will be held in the morning before the exams. Mass will be held in the evening for your bath. There will be a special Mass on Saturday afternoon for your granny. There will be a Mass for your granny's boils and aches and black lungs and ulcers and spots and diabetes and psychosis. There will be a Mass for the anointing of the bollocks of the bull in the field near the cloche over the railway bridge. Mass will be held before the college's Junior B hurling final. It will be held for the Connaught Junior A regional final in wizardry and sarcasm. Mass will be held on top of the reek for the arrogant and meek, and the bishop will arrive by Eurocopter. There will be a Mass to get him up in one piece and a Mass to get him back in one piece. Masses will be held in the outhouse. Mass will be held for the safe arrival of the new lambs and the birthing of ass foals. Mass will be held in your uncle's sitting room, but his neighbors will be envious and later stage a finer Mass. There will be a Mass to find you a husband and another Mass to pray he stays. There will be good intentions Masses. Your intentions, if they're good, will come true. Mass will be held for your weddings and wakes and when you wake up. Mass will be held for Muslim conversions. Mass will be held for the war on terror. Mass will be held for black babies and the yellowy black babies. Mass will not be held for red babies, they have upset the Pope. Mass will be held for your brother when he gets the meningitis from picking his nose. Mass will be held for your cousins when they stop going to Mass. Mass will be held for the harvest and the sun and the moon and a frost and a snow and for a healthy spring and red autumn, for a good wind and no wind, and for a good shower and a dry spell, and for the silage and the hay and the grass and the turf. There will be a saving of the turf day. There will be a saving of the hay day. There will be a saving of your soul day. There will be a Mass for fishing fishermen. There will be multiple Masses for Mary around August when she did all the appearing. There will be a good Mass when the statue cries rusty tears. There will be a good Mass and a great collection. Mass will be held for apparitions and anniversaries and weddings and baptisms. Mass will be held for all your decisions so you don't have to blame yourself. There will be a Mass for the poor dead Clares. There will be a Mass for the black Protestants if Paisley allows it. Mass will be held for the De Valeras and the Croke Park goers. There will be a Mass for the conversion of the Jews and for their collection. There will be a Mass for the communion class. There will be a Mass for the no-name club non-drinkers. There will be a giving up smoking Christmas Day Mass. There will be a Mass for the Christian angels, but only the Christian ones. There will be no Mass for your freedom, but the air will be pea-sweet and the sky will clear. Mass will not be held for the souls of your gay sons. Mass will not be held for song and dance makers, the apple cart topplers. There will be no woman's Mass. There will be no Mass solely by women for women. Your daughters will not hold Mass. There are strict rules for these masses. That's why it's a love-hate relationship with the Catholic Church there. A woman named Elaine Feeney, yes. There will be no masses held for women, or by women. Yeah. This is a poem by a guy named Paul Muldoon called The Sightseers, and he makes two references you may not be familiar with. He's a Northern Irish poet. He talks at one point about the Bee Specials, and the Bee Specials are kind of an Ulster Protestant vigilante group that sort of like the morality people patrolling in the Muslim countries that go around and sort of get people on the streets to make sure they're pure enough. The Bee Specials do that in Ulster, or they did. They don't now. And then when they catch you, they made him, as he says here, they made him sing the sash. That is, the Protestants all had to wear an orange sash, so they had to know the Protestant songs, and they had to sing the Protestant songs, because if they couldn't, they might be a Catholic in Northern Ireland, and you were in trouble then. Okay, this is called The Sightseers. My father and mother, my brother and my sister, and I, with Uncle Pat, our dour, best beloved uncle, had set out that Sunday afternoon in July in his broken-down Ford, not to visit some graveyard. One died of shingles, one of fever, another's knees turned to jelly, but to visit the brand-new roundabout at Balgolly, the first in Ulster. Uncle Pat was telling us how the Bee Specials had stopped him one night somewhere near Balgolly and smashed his bicycle and made him sing the sash and curse the Pope of Rome. They held a pistol so hard against his forehead, he said there was still the mark of an O when he got home. Capital B hyphen specials, B Specials. I don't know what the B it stands for, but I do know they were the Ulster Vigilante group. And I said that Irish poetry was tragic, but not all of it is. I found a few that were not. This is one really nice one called Everything is Waiting for You by a guy named David White. Your great mistake is to act the drama as if you were alone, as if life were a progressive and cunning crime with no witnesses to the tiny hidden transgressions. To feel abandoned is to deny the intimacy of your surroundings. Surely even you at times have felt the grand array, the swelling presence, and the chorus crowding out your solo voice. You must note the way the soap dish enables you, or the window latch grants you freedom. Alertness is the hidden discipline of familiarity. The stairs are your mentor of things to come. The doors have always been there, both to frighten you and invite you, and the tiny speaker in the phone is your dream ladder to divinity. Put down the weight of your aloneness and ease into the conversation. The kettle is singing even as it pours you a drink. The cooking pots have left their arrogant aloofness and seen the good in you at last. All the birds and the creatures of the world are unutterably themselves. Everything is waiting for you. Seamus Heaney is probably one of the best-known late 20th century Irish poets, I think. A large body of verse, and this is one of his that's particularly poignant, I think, because it's a very personal one to him, called Midterm Break. I sat all morning in the college sick bay, counting bells, nailing classes to a close. At 2 o'clock, our neighbors drove me home. In the porch, I met my father crying. He had always taken funerals in his stride, and Big Jim Evans saying it was a hard blow. The baby cooed and laughed and rocked the pram when I came in, and I was embarrassed by old men standing up to shake my hand and tell me they were sorry for my trouble. Whispers informed strangers that I was the eldest, away at school, as my mother held my hand in hers and coughed out angry, tearless sighs. At 10 o'clock, the ambulance arrived with the corpse, stanched and bandaged by the nurses. Next morning, I went up to the room. Snowdrops and candles soothed the bedside. I saw him for the first time in 6 weeks. Paler now, wearing a poppy bruise on his left temple, he lay in the 4-foot box as in his cot. No gaudy scars, the car bumper knocked him clear. A 4-foot box, a foot for every year. Austin Clarke, another modern Irish poet. Austin Clarke liked to go out. He was one who wanted to capture the spirit of the Irish countryside, even though he was a very modern city boy. So he went out and lived in the countryside. And this is one he wrote, The Farmer's Daughter, about an Irish farm, not the jokes that we make about the farmer's daughter, but this is called The Farmer's Daughter. When night stirred at sea and the fire brought a crowd in, they say that her beauty was music in the mouth, and few in the candlelight thought her too proud, for the house of the farmer is known by the trees. Men that had seen her drank deep and were silent. The women were speaking wherever she went as a bell that is rung, or a wonder told shyly, and oh, she was the Sunday in every week. Nice, I like that. Louis McNeese, another major poet whose name, if you're reading Irish poetry, you'll see a lot. Indoors, the tang of a tiny oil lamp. Outdoors, the winking signal on the waste of sea. Indoors, the sound of the wind. Outdoors, the wind. Indoors, the locked heart and the lost key. Outdoors, the chill, the void, the siren. Indoors, the strong man pain to find his blood red cools while the blind clock grows louder and faster. Outdoors, the silent moon, the garrulous tides she rules. Indoors, ancestral curse come blessing. Outdoors, the empty bowl of heaven, the empty deep. Indoors, a purposeful man who talks at cross purposes to himself in a broken sleep. Okay. And of course, you can't read Irish poetry and not read Yeats, right? You got to read Yeats when you're reading Irish poetry, because when you think Irish poetry, Yeats is the internationally known Irish poet. So I'll read you a couple of short poems by Yeats, and then one slightly longer poem to finish up on. Too short. This one's called A Deep Sworn Vow. Others, because you did not keep that deep sworn vow, have been friends of mine. Yet always when I look death in the face, or when I clamber to the heights of sleep, or when I grow excited with wine, suddenly I meet your face. Okay. And then this one, we said at the beginning that there were people in Ireland who took the occasion of World War I to rebel against England, thinking, well, they're detracted on the continent. There were other people in Ireland who signed up and fought, thinking that the Germans were a worse enemy and they would deal with England later. And this is one Yeats wrote called An Irish Airman Foresees His Death. And you can sense the ambivalence in this poem. The Irish is fighting for the British, fighting for the Allied cause in World War I, but he's aware that it's not going to do a lot for Ireland's freedom. So an Irish airman foresees his death. I know that I shall meet my fate somewhere among the clouds above. Those that I fight, I do not hate. Those that I guard, I do not love. My country is Kiltartan Cross. My countrymen Kiltartans poor. No likely end could bring them loss or leave them happier than before. Not law nor duty bade me fight, nor public men, nor cheering crowds. A lonely impulse of delight drove to this tumult in the clouds. I balanced all, brought all to mind. The years to come seem waste of breath, a waste of breath the years behind, in balance with this life, this death. And then I'll finish up with this one. I said that every Irish poet, I think, that I can think of, even the very modern ones, and Yeats is a fairly modern poet, end up talking about Irish mythology at some point. They just can't help it, because Irish mythology is so interesting. And I don't know if you've read much of it, but it's its own unique thing. It has nothing to do with, say, English mythology or Greek. The main character in this poem and in a lot of the Irish mythological stories is a guy named Cuchulainn. And Cuchulainn is sort of the Sir Lancelot, the Achilles. He's a great fighter. He never loses in battle. The gods love him. He's not the brightest guy. He keeps doing stupid things, and he does a stupid thing in this poem. But he never loses, and the gods love him. He fights for his king, who is a man named Connor. Connor is the great Red Branch king, the one who unified this mythological Ireland. Connor is smart, he's clever, he's decisive, he's a little bit sneaky. Cuchulainn is married to Emer, who is a queen, a daughter of a queen, a daughter of a royal family and a queen. Now, in this poem, Cuchulainn has been off fighting with Connor apparently for a long time because they've been watching for him to come back. Emer is home minding the dun, the fort, and she's outside, as they say, rattling Doman. It's rattled, it's an R-A-D-D-L-E. That's a kind of red dye, so she's out there dyeing things red. So you have to imagine her with her heads dipped in this red dye. And so she lifts them up, it's like she's got blood all over her hands. They have a young son named Cuchulainn Jr., and you have to believe it's been a while because he's grown up now. Cuchulainn is coming back from the wars with Connor. He's nearly home, but he's made, as I said, he's not the brightest. He has made a dumb mistake. He is bringing a sweet young thing with him back home to his wife, who has been waiting for him for all these years. All right, so this is the scene that we've set up. A man came slowly from the setting sun to Emer, rattling raiment in her dun, and said, I am that swineherd whom you bid to watch the road between the wood and tide, but now I have no need to watch it more. Then Emer cast the web upon the floor, and raising arms all rattled with the dye, parted her lips with a loud, sudden cry. That swineherd stared upon her face and said, No man alive, no man among the dead has won the gold his cars of battle bring. But if your master comes home triumphing, why must you blench and shake from foot to crown? Thereupon he shook the Moor and cast him down upon the web-heaped floor and cried his word. With him is one sweet-throated as a bird. You dare me to my face, and thereupon she smote with rattled fist. And where her son herded the cattle, came with stumbling feet and cried to him with angry voice, It is not meet to idle your life away, a common herd. I have long waited, mother, for that word, but wherefore go now? There is a man to die, and you have the heaviest arm under the sky. Whether in daylight or at stars, my father stands amid his battle cars, but you have grown to be the taller man. But somewhere under starlight or the sun, my father stands, aged, worn out with wars, on foot, on horseback, or in battle cars. I only ask what way my journey lies, for he who made you bitter made you wise. The Red Branch camp in a great company between the wood's rim and the horses of the sea. Go there and light a campfire at wood's rim, but tell your name and lineage only to him whose blade compels, and wait until they have found some feasting man that same oath has bound. Among those feasting men Cuchulainn dwelt, and his young sweetheart close beside him knelt, stared on the mournful wonder of his eyes, even as spring upon the ancient skies, and pondered on the glory of his days. And all around the harp string told his praise, and Connor, the Red Branch king of kings, with his own fingers touched the golden strings. At last Cuchulainn spake, Some man has made his evening fire amid the leafy shade. I have heard him singing to and fro, and I have wondered at the sweet sound of his bow. Seek out what man that is. One went and came. He bade let all know he gives his name at the sword point only, and waits till we have found some feasting man that same oath has bound. Cuchulainn cried, I am the only man of all this host so bound from childhood on. After short fighting in the leafy shade, he spake to the young man, Is there no maid who loves you, no white arms to wrap you round, or do you long for the dim sleepy ground that you have come and dared me to my face? The dooms of men are in God's hidden place. Your head a while seemed like a woman's head that I loved once. Again the fighting sped. But now the war rage in Cuchulainn woke, and through that new blade's guard the old blade broke and pierced him. Speak before your death is done. Cuchulainn I, mighty Cuchulainn's son. I put you from your pain, I can do no more. While day its burden onto evening bore, with head bowed on his knees, Cuchulainn stayed. Then Connor sent that sweet-voiced maid, and she to win him his gray hair caressed. In vain her arms, in vain her soft white breast. Then Connor, the subtlest of all men, ranked his druids round him 10 by 10, and spake thus, Cuchulainn will dwell there and brood for 3 days more in dreadful quietude, and then arise and raving slay us all. Chant in his ear delusions magical, that he may fight the horses of the sea. The druids took them to their mystery and chanted for 3 days. Then Cuchulainn stared on the horses of the sea, and heard the cars of battle, and his own name cried, and fought forever with the invulnerable tide. There you go. Glorious Dead, beautiful tragedy. I tell you, you got to love Irish poetry, but it certainly is emotional and gripping.